So we don't derive a benefit from women's success or their money, certainly up front in a relationship the same way that women might. And I'm not saying all men move like this, but there's definitely men who take a girl on a date, nice date, pay for the dinner, might treat her to a concert, take her out, somewhere, sometimes spend $50, $100 on a first date. There's even simps out there that are gonna pay for fucking shopping sprees and shit, which is I'd say a small proportion of men, but there's definitely men who are gonna lead with their money in that sort of way. So, Nick, you can unmute her.
I'm back, bitches.
Oh God,
okay.
I'm sorry, guys.
If someone can pay you another $500, I'd be quiet for that.
There is that.
But I would say that maybe you're right when it comes to just dating, but when it comes to family creation, women are just as likely as men to support their family and their offspring. So for that, maybe you're right. I don't think people care for like a first date or in the dating phase how much money a woman makes, especially if they're expected and they are planning to provide all that. But when it comes to actually long-term relationships, which is what the studies are showing, that men are starting to care more and more about a woman's income, about her education is a big one. I mean, maternal education has a big impact on kids. Those kids end up doing far better, having far higher proficiency levels in math, science. They end up doing far better in school. Moms who are highly educated expose their children to activities that stimulate their cognitive development. There's a study that showed that like kids who have parents that have more than a bachelor's degree hear like 30 million more words by age like something than kids who have parents on welfare. Like these are things that you should definitely be thinking about. College educated women have lower divorce rates, and their marriages.
I actually heard that.
No, that is just an absolute. It was even published in 2023. 2023 stats came out. They were in Forbes again, and especially when you look at longevity, a woman with a college degree is almost 80% likely to have a marriage that lasts at least 20 years. A woman without a college degree.
I heard it's more likely if she's college educated to initiate a divorce.
But that's what you're conflating. So you're conflating,
what
you're looking, so you have selection bias. So you're looking at couples who are already getting divorced, and then you're saying in those couples that are getting divorced, the women are more likely to initiate if they're college educated. You're right. But those women are less likely to be in that position in the first place. So you have a selection bias by just looking at couples that are getting divorced.
Well, is it really a selection? Wouldn't you be of the people that are getting divorced? Wouldn't you be looking at that?
Yeah, but of the people that are getting divorced, but they're less likely to be in that group in the first place. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, so that's where this manosphere constantly conflates those. I called it out on Fresh and Fit too. It's very easy. You could look this up super easily. So if you're going to look at the couples that are getting divorced, and I think it makes sense, a woman who has more resources is more likely to initiate and leave a shitty situation, but college educated women are less likely to be in that situation in the first place, and you're just looking at people who are already in that situation.
But I've also heard that women who are the breadwinners are more likely to divorce their husbands.
But again, college...
But it's not even just among the cohort of people that are getting divorced. It's just is more likely.
So that has been true. It's been narrowing, but that is true. But that still doesn't negate the fact that those women who are more educated, especially if you have higher than like a bachelor's degree, like your divorce rate goes down to 25%, which is half of what the general population is.
Okay.
Cool stuff.
Good story. Good story. But in any case, when it comes to dating, for example, men don't really derive a benefit from a woman's success.
Well, that study I mentioned that Corinne did showed that they put like millions of dating app users, and they put their faces and they put their income, and both men and women were more likely to rate someone as more attractive. Both men and women, including men, were more likely to rate a woman as attractive when she had higher income. So they're starting to care, at least on dating apps. Now, I don't know if these people were dating for marriage or what they were dating for. I think this would be a bigger deal if you're looking for marriage. And it's also the bigger deal for women if they're looking for long-term relationships. We talk about all the time. Women who are looking for shorter-term relationships care more about the physical attractiveness of their significant other. Women who are looking for long-term relationships care more about other things.
Disavow. Okay, you can talk about the studies, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe we can ask all the girls here at the table, and perhaps we asked this to you last time. Would you, on a first date, the guy asked to split the bill, would you take Coral with that?
Depends. If he asked to take me to dinner, if he asked me, then I expect the person who asked to pay. So yes.
Okay, I mean, here, we'll go around the table and I'll address that. What about you?
I wouldn't have a problem with it. I would be fine with that, and sometimes I would even offer to pay the entire bill myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's case by case, but I don't know. I think it's so like circumstantial, because I do kind of agree that like if you're asked to be like wined and dined and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, so you got half. I do think that would be kind of like, But yeah, so I think it just depends on like the conversation, the relationship before, because also if it wasn't like that, like they were all like big gang, I'm going to take you out, then I wouldn't mind splitting at all. So yeah, I think it kind of depends. Yeah.
I actually want to add to my answer, kind of going off of yours. I would be slightly mad if they asked to do like halvesies. Like if we did separate checks, I'd be fine, because I don't drink and normally drinks are expensive. So if we went half on and they were drinking, I'd be like,
Okay. Lauren, what about you?
I've split the bill on dates. I've paid for a lot of dates too. I think I don't like the idea that you should have to have a financial investment just to get to like if I were single, I don't think it should be dependent on a financial loss potentially for you just to get to know me.
Madison?
I would most definitely love if a man paid for the whole entire thing, but I don't mind at all either.
Okay. So you mentioned that if the guy asked you,
Yeah.
then he should pay,
Yeah.
right? More often than not, who's asking for the first date, the guy or you?
Are you advocating for some type of affirmative action here, Brian?
I'm not asking for affirmative action, but
it just happens to be, just like it happens to be with firefighting, that more men can meet the standard. Men ask women out more. That is true. So
Right.
they're more likely to, because they ask, in my opinion, the person who asks is hosting. When someone says, "Can I take you out to dinner?" I assume you want to take me out to dinner.
Yes, if you word it like that. But if you, for example, you're like, "Do you want to grab some food?" That's a bit more ambiguous.
Or like, are you free for dinner?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it's still that person asking, personally. That's what I think. I think the person that
So
asks
you would
should
take
pay.
an issue with...
I would, and one of the reasons for that is I would assume, because one, if he asked, and two, because still we're in this society where he's expected to pay and he's foregoing that, and he didn't even mention it. And first of all, I've never had that happen. But if it did, I would assume he's just a cheap and stingy person. And me, from the culture I'm from, like, I am fighting to pay for everybody. And it's not just a gender thing. I just went to lunch with a colleague. He's like in his 50s, old colleague, Mormon guy in his 50s. I paid. Like, he took out his wallet. I said, no, let me pay. I constantly try to pay for my friends. We're always fighting for the bill. So it's not about that. But I'd be afraid that he's one of those people who's going to be like, I'm not even friends with people who are like, can you Venmo me for the Skittles? Because I don't even know like how to be friends with someone like that. I'm like afraid to hang out with them, because if they're running into the gas station and they're like, do you want anything? I'm like, no, because I'm so afraid that they're going to be so perplexed by having to pay for something of mine. So a guy who's automatically showing me that behavior, I don't even split checks with my friends. It's more like, okay, I'll get you, you get me next time. So I would never want to be with, have a friend or a significant other who likes to split checks. It's just not part of me or my culture, and I like that part of my culture. So
Okay, but you do acknowledge that it is a stereotypical gender role to expect a guy to pay for the first date.
It is.
Okay, well, I mean, how do you reconcile that with your rather egalitarian view on other things?
I don't think that it should be. I don't think the stereotype should be in place in the sense of because he's a man he should pay, which is why when I just went to lunch with a colleague, and he's a man and he's much older than me, I asked to pay. So I think
that wasn't a romantic
it wasn't
scenario.
a romantic scenario, and I said if I ask a guy out, I'll pay. And after the first date, like if I want to see you again and I'm like, after that, they don't have to pay for every date, but usually if you ask me to be there in the first place, then I think you should pay. And if you don't pay, then I'd be like, ooh, he's just like a cheap, stingy person. That's would be my impression of it. And it's like, you asked me to be here and you're not paying. Now,
the guy asking you to be there, you admitted yourself that you don't really ask men to go out on dates.
no.
So I mean, if men are de facto the ones that have to ask women for dates, then
They don't
if
have to
you're-
ask women. They just have to ask me if you want me to go out, because I barely leave my house. So there's no way I'm asking a random guy to go out on a date. I'll barely go out to see my friends.
Right, so even you, somebody who's not really out and about, you're still expecting a guy to take on the burden of having to initiate.
Yeah. I mean, he has to take the burden to initiate. And the bottom line is just the way things work. It may not be fair. Life is not fair. But far more men want to go out with me than I do with them initially. Now,
That's how it is, though.
That's just
Men
how
are
it is.
initiators.
Yeah. So therefore, if men are initiators, I think they should pay for the first date.
Yeah, but that...
Sarah, I have a question
Yeah.
for you.
Go
So would you be open to, like, if a guy asked you to do something where, like, hey, do you want to go for a walk or a run? Like, would that be an acceptable date idea? Or
Maybe not a walk or run because I always wear heels, but I'm okay with like, oh, there's fireworks going on at the park tonight. Do you want to go do that? Yeah, I don't expect them to take me on some expensive, lavish date. In fact, that would kind of make me uncomfortable because I still have that part of me that like, because I make good money. Like when I'm out at a restaurant, I just order whatever the fuck I want. If I knew someone else was paying for it, I would be like, oh, okay, let me not get this appetizer. Let me not. Like I do have that in my head. And it's actually more uncomfortable. But yeah.
Right. Well, I guess it's just convenient that if your position is, well, whoever asks should pay, it does sort of glance over and overlook the fact that men de facto are the ones who are initiating and who are asking women out on dates.
I think that's just the reality. I don't think that I think women who want to ask men out on dates should. And I don't think there's anything
Yeah,
wrong
but
with that.
overwhelmingly women don't.
Yeah, and that's just the reality of it is what it is. Like men are going to ask women out more, and so because of that, because they're in that role, then yeah, they're going to have.
So
I think they
when
should.
it comes to something that perhaps is negatively impacts men, it is what it is.
I don't think it's how it should be.
Well, no, but you said you do think so because you said that men should
I
pay
don't
for the
think
first
that
date.
men.
You do think it
No,
should be that
I
way.
don't think that men should be asking women out more than women ask men out. I just think that's the reality
Well,
of
that's
the
wishful
situation.
thinking.
What do you mean? Is it wishful thinking? I'm saying it shouldn't.
You think what?
I'm saying it shouldn't it shouldn't. I'm not saying that I think that it should be the case, but it is the case, and that's just the reality. Just like I said, it's the reality that women carry children. The way the dating market works, if we're talking about reality and this is the truth and the red pill, it is the case that men generally are more likely to be the chasers and the initiators of dates. And unless you want to implement some kind of affirmative action here,
Yes, let's implement.
I don't know
affirmative
what else
action.
to do about that.
Women will be legally obligated to hit on one dude a week
There we
by
go.
law. If you
Yeah.
don't, it's a felony. You get thrown in jail. Sorry, you didn't talk to enough dudes. All right, let me do a couple chats here.